HMIS lead webinar on this 15th day of November. We are excited to be here with all of you and appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule right now to spend time with us this afternoon or morning, depending on where you're at. Just a couple of housekeeping things. So first up, there is closed captioning available on this call. In order to turn that on, you go ahead to the little closed captioning icon in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Click on the small arrow beside that icon and then select your preferred caption language. Couple of reminders. So all of the attendees are on mute. Little change to the webinar this time around. We won't be using the Q&A feature because it is a long story, but instead we're using the chat feature. All of you on the call are able to send chat messages to all of the panelists, and then we will be crafting our answers and sticking that back in the chat for everyone to see. It is helpful if you can include slide numbers if that's a part of your question, because sometimes there is a little bit of a delay between when you asked and when we're actually answering it. So sometimes we lose the context of the question that you have. It's helpful if you can be specific, because sometimes we're also like just answering questions and not actually listening to what's being said. So any context you can give is really helpful so we can make sure we get you accurate information. There may be times when we ask you to follow up with the HMIS AAQ, which stands for Ask a Question. And Sam has dropped that link in the chat for your reference. That just makes sure that we can get you the full information that we feel you need to be successful in your role. The materials for this call are kept on the HUD Exchange. You can sign up for the HMIS lead listserv on the HUD Exchange as well, and you can also find links to other HMIS information and submit AAQs there. All right, if you're wondering if this call is for you, here's some things that we use this call for. It is to inform HMIS leads and system admins of any upcoming events that we have going on, provide information and any changes to guidance. We provide broad overviews of HMIS guidance and foundational HMIS knowledge, providing a forum for questions from the field. We remind COCs and HMIS leads about upcoming reporting deadlines, requirements, using HMIS and other data sources, and then providing leadership for implementation success of your HMIS systems. So if that sounds great to you, then you're in the right spot. We do our best to answer all the questions that we receive during a call. If you have asked a question and it hasn't been answered yet, and we're at the end of the call, you can go ahead and stay on the call and we'll continue to answer as many questions as possible with the goal of getting through all of them. However, sometimes that isn't feasible just due to the volume of questions. And so then you may be asked to send your question again through the AAQ. Also, if we do answer your question verbally, we will also provide that answer in writing and post that in the chat for your reference. All right, so here is your lineup for today. We have Fran Ledger from the SNAPS office, pronouns are they, them. I am Jesse Jorstad from Apt Associates, pronouns he, him. Alyssa Parrish, ICF, she, her. Gwen Beebe, ICF, she, they. Max Burns, Cloudburst, he, him. Kiara Collins, Apt Associates, she, her. RJ Dela Cruz from Apt Associates, he, him. Sam Camiana, Apt Associates, she, her. And Kayla Thompson, Apt Associates, she, her. Our agenda for today, there was a slight change from the agenda that went out this morning. We have a little bit briefer agenda because we want to make sure that we have enough time to get through the content that we have that's very important today. We'll go through reporting timelines. We'll do a little debrief from the fall NHSDC conference, talk about HUD report submissions, talk about the recently published HICPIT notice, and then an announcement about path reporting relating to PDX. Then our deeper dive content today, it's the webinar you've all been waiting for. We're going to talk about the longitudinal system analysis, or LSA, going over the process, and then also a demonstration of HDX 2.0, which is where that information is submitted. And then we will end our time today seeking your input for what would you like to have from an active list in your HMIS. Okay, so without further ado, I will turn it over to Fran for some reporting timelines.
Hello, everyone. So we have a list that is almost off the page. That's exciting. Speaks to how busy everyone is. So I'm going to start off with Stella Visification. So LSA opened, and Stella Visification is not available right now, but we hope soon there'll be some updates made, and then that announcement will go out on the HDX banner, so you'll be able to see it there when it's available, but we hope that'll happen soon. We have some other reporting updates for SSVF. I'm going to go out a little bit out of order. SSVF monthly uploads is December 1st through the 7th. ESG-CV reporting and YHDP quarterly reporting January 30th, 2024. And then for the PATH annual report, the due date for the state PATH contacts is 12/31/2023, and keep in mind that those the state PATH contacts set their own state deadlines, so they have some time to review those. For RI reporting, for the Q4C FY23 for grants not ending in 9/2023, upload period is January 15th to the 26th. And you probably are not surprised that LSA data submission launched November 13th, and we anticipate early February for the system performance measures. So that was a lot. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, this might be how you're feeling and we're feeling. And so we wanted to acknowledge that. It's a lot that you're juggling, and we appreciate so much what you do and your role, and we want to support as much as we can, and also reach out to your neighbors for support, your fellow HMIS system administrators and other folks, your peers that do the work that you do. I think peer support can be hugely important. Certainly was when I was a system administrator, but also don't hesitate to show up at this call, ask us lots of questions, and submit questions to the AAQ. And again, thank you for all your work. I want to talk a little bit about NHSDC. We just had a conference that had a fairly large number of sessions and 2 institutes. We think that went very well. There was over 400 attendees at the conference. That is a high number, highest since pre-pandemic. And the institutes had good attendance also. We live streamed the sessions, not the institutes. And for over 40, at least 40% of the attendees, it was their first time attending. Some of the session highlights, there was a whole track that was set aside for looking at comparable database, victim service provider content. There was also sessions on privacy, coordinated entry, system performance measures, and the plenary spoke to privacy and keeping information safe for vulnerable populations. And then, of course, we had the HUD listening session on the 2024 data standards. And then there was also the announcement for NHSDC in Kansas City, Missouri for April 10th through the 12th. And your HMIS funds help pay for your going to NHSDC if you choose to do that. So please be aware of that. We make an announcement that explains how you can use those funds for conferences and for other learning opportunities to help further your knowledge around the work that you do. Let's go on. Yeah, perfect. So I just wanted to mention, so we did have a live stream, so there was some ability to attend virtually and see what was going on in the rooms. And so some stats we had on the page here is, so for our total viewers, we had 445 on the first day and 250 on the second. And then unique was 229 on the first day and 147 on the second, with a maximum of viewers simultaneously was 106 on the first day and 86 on the second. So HUD is really invested in making sure that people who cannot show up on site, sometimes it's very difficult to show up on site, that we continue to offer things through a live stream platform. We're going to try in the future to make, for our live stream participants, make it more interactive and allow for that kind of exchange to happen. Currently, what we do is we are working mostly with providing that kind of interactive content just for those folks internally and for people joining the live stream just to be able to sit in and hear what's going on. We do record everything as we're live streaming. That gets cleaned up and then it's posted to the HUD Exchange. So all that content will be available on the HUD Exchange soon, along with copies of the slide deck and transcription of the content. Let's go to the next. So here we received feedback on all of the HUD sessions, and this is telling you that, you know, the average number of responses we got in each session was 17 with a maximum of 47, and our low was 7 in one of our sessions. System performance measures, part 2 was the one that we received the highest rated feedback, which was 49 out of 5, and our lowest ones were our HMIS Fundamentals Institute and our performance evaluation for people with lived experience and expertise. And so these are ones that we know have are important to community folks, and they've said that they're important. So we're going to take a look and see on individual feedback how we might improve what we're doing there. Let's go ahead. And so we're going to just flash up a few of the comments. Some of the positives we heard was it was wonderful to hear from speakers with different backgrounds and experiences. That was from the plenary. We made sure we had a panel of 4 people, and the panel included myself, somebody with lived experience who is also a provider. We had NHSDC represented, and then also someone from the victim service provider community that had that was also legal expert. And then always impressed by the complete, deep, and thorough understanding of the subject matter, which was related to the Q&A session, and then some really good insights for communities tackling system performance and where to focus for the System Performance Improvement Part 1 session. We get incongruent comments, which I think speaks to the range of folks that show up in sessions. So, on some of the workshops, loved it, didn't love it on the format. Some people want things more fundamental, and some people want things more advanced, which, I think it makes sense. On technical comments, we had some issues with volume, so we appreciated that. We'll next time we'll do better on our volume. And then, being on the strategic communication for more time on topics, so we'll look to improving that also. I wanted to point out there was a listserv went out. We've had 2 listservs go out about reports, the APR and CAPR, and some communities not being able to submit those because vendors are still working diligently to get those available to communities. And so there's some delays. And HUD is aware of those delays. The most recent announcement is about, it's not about giving extensions. So I want to be really clear about that. It's not about giving an extension. HUD is not able to make a broad blanket extension for everyone. What we can do is we can look to our monitoring and make, and we, when we're doing monitoring, it's looking at risk, and we can then say, okay, well, something was going on. Was something going across the board for everyone? Were these unforeseen circumstances that were happening in communities? And in this situation, yes. And so what we plan to do is treat this as unforeseen circumstances beyond recipients' control and consider this as a mitigating factor in monitoring for program compliance. We will not look at this in program compliance. And then as soon as you're able to submit reports, then, which we estimate at most to be December 15th, that then you submit those reports. And then if your HMIS vendor has issued you any kind of documentation, that you maintain that in your record. But we're well aware of what's going on. And so is your CPD reps, your YHDP desk officers, the CARES desk officers. So there's no need to reach out to anyone, and there's no need to request an extension. We're just going to take this into account for the monitorings that we're doing. On the HIC and PIT data collection notice, we know folks probably have a lot of questions. And the changes are related to the 2024 data standards. And there's going to be an office hours that is going to happen at 3:30 Eastern today. And show up at that office hours, ask your questions there. The experts will be on that call, and they'll be able to respond to a lot of your questions. That will be a much better place for you to take those questions. You certainly can drop them in the chat here, and we can follow up. But I think you're going to find if you show up at the office hours and ask your questions there, you're going to get a lot more answered, and it's going to be a lot more rich conversation that happens during that office hours. Today, we're going to be concentrating a lot on the LSA. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fran. Before we go to Alyssa, I did just want to mention that if you have asked a question in the chat and we haven't gotten to it yet, you don't need to resubmit it. We are working through questions. A lot of times we have to look up links to get you the complete answer and whatnot. So it just takes a little bit of time. So we appreciate your patience. Okay, Alyssa, take it away.
Thanks, Jesse. And this is a new process. So little trial and error here. So for path reporting in PDX, just want to do a quick PDX announcement. This is on behalf of your friendly PDX operator, who is not me. But they couldn't be here today to give this messaging to you all. So PDX has opened for fiscal year 2023 PATH annual reporting and fiscal year 24 progress reports for states that use those. Some HMIS vendors are still programming the updates for the fiscal year 2024 data standards, going back to what Fran just mentioned about the HMIS reporting messaging that went out. So if your HMIS vendor has not completed the programming that's required for an updated PATH annual report in your HMIS, please communicate this with your PATH providers. It sounds like from the PDX side, they're getting some messages from providers, PATH providers specifically, and state PATH contacts that have been expressing some confusion about which report version they should be using while they're reporting on fiscal year 2023, just acknowledging that those reports will be in alignment with the fiscal year 2024 data standards. So the PDX website is programmed for the most recent version of the PATH reporting specs that are on the HUD Exchange. And if the HMIS is updated with the most recent version of those reporting specifications, and the providers are still experiencing errors when they're trying to upload those in PDX, please do reach out to the PDX help desk and attach a copy of the file so that they can help troubleshoot. And there was a comment that came into the chat earlier that there was a community that reached out to their state PATH contact and was able to get a reporting extension. So it sounds like that is a potential option as well, but it was not an across the board extension from SAMHSA. So I think that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you so much, Alyssa. All right, I feel like we need a drum roll or something just to introduce this next topic. But Kiera, let's talk about the LSA, shall we?
Let's talk about it. Okay, let me just take control. All right, so hello, welcome back. For those of you returning, you might have seen me last year. I was joined by Sean Morris. We have a new Sean Morris this year, RJ, who will be joining me today. I was also on this last month. We are going to be walking through the process, which overall has not changed from last year for those of you who are returning. But we will note a couple things. RJ will walk through the process again, note the things that have changed, do a short HDX demo. I will start off, and then I will talk about, I will finish with the timeline and next steps and kind of things to remember. So we will get there. We're going in this order because we know that there are a lot of new folks working on the LSA this year, and we want to make sure we're explaining all the terms that are relevant to the timeline. So Art is going to go through the process, explain all the terms, and then I will use those terms to talk about the timeline and the next steps and what you all should have to do. I know that also many of you have already joined an introduction call with your regional review team. So I will note there are regional coordinators and points of contacts and technical assistance providers that are helping COCs. And then there are the LSA specific review teams that held calls by region this week. So I know that that terminology might be fairly confusing. The regional coordinators and TA providers were invited to those calls, so they might have been on those calls, but they were not leading those calls. We were trying to coordinate and do our best to make sure everyone is on the same page. But so in those, we asked kind of how familiar are you with the LSA? And so there are a number of people that this is your first year, you might not know things, know kind of the context. So I'm going to spend a couple slides before RJ dives in, just situating where and what the LSA is. So the LSA, also sometimes called Part 2 of the AHAR, is part of the Annual Homeless Assessment Report to Congress, known as the AHAR. It is a congressionally mandated report prepared by APT Associates. So I am from APT Associates. All of the LSA review team members will be from APT. And we prepare the reports on behalf of HUD, and we take in, and so that AHAR report is in two parts that you'll see at the bottom of the screen. That part one, the PIT and HIC, point in time, housing inventory count. People have been asking and excited to, start thinking about that happening in January. So there is a lot of overlap. We definitely recognize that you all are doing a lot. We all at APT are also involved in a lot of these things, so we feel the pain and the pressure points and the overlap. So definitely understand that, and trying to, as much as we can, make this as seamless as possible and get you all the information you need. So that point in time count, there are other things happening with that next year, from last year's data and next year's data. The LSA doesn't, the LSA uses or compares to some of that data, but it doesn't, it's a separate thing, and it will pull all of your HMIS data for certain project types. It will export it, and you'll import it into our system. For both parts, this period of TA that APT helps COCs with is to help clean your data so that the data can be used in the report. So I'll go here. So the 5 project types are emergency shelter, transitional housing, safe haven, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. So as you might realize, it is not all project types in your HMIS. It does pull in your client data and your inventory data. So you'll see on the left-hand side, all of the files that kind of get exported with your aggregate data. There is, people data. It doesn't have individual level PII or client specific data. It aggregates it into those exports, and we then help and try and help you all with making sure it is as clean as possible so that it can be used in the reports that we do. So RJ will talk a little bit. We'll talk a lot more about all of that and the warnings and errors that you get and what those mean for you. But I just wanted to point out that that is kind of what this part of the thing is. We will be helping, and we have a big team to help clean your data. And then after the data cleaning ends, we go into kind of the further usability and analysis and report writing. I did just want to note, this should have been also in the intro calls, the LSA submission guide has a lot more information about all of this stuff. The whole first and second chapter is about what is AHAR and the LSA, and give you a lot more context and detail. It should be accurate. The one inaccuracy that we have noted is that in the past, the LSA export had 10 files, and so you will see those 10 files listed in the LSA submission guide. Now there are 12 files. So this slide, the slides in your intro calls, any other for future discussions will reference these 12 files, but that's not in the submission guide. But you should look to the submission guide for really everything about context for AHAR and LSA, as well as all the processes that RJ is going to go over next, the timeline, and some key things about how to manage HDX 2.0, your users, etc. So I'm going to turn it over to RJ, and I will be back after RJ. And RJ, I'm going to give it to you right now.
Okay, thank you, Kira. Hi, everyone. My name is RJ Dela Cruz, and I'm helping manage the LSA section of the HDX 2.0. So we'll go go through a few slides like Kira mentioned, where I'll define some of the terms especially for the folks who are new, for folks who have used this and done this process in past years. It'll be similar in a lot of ways, hopefully with just small tweaks that have made the system a little more user-friendly this year. So this first slide is just meant to show the basic data flow, right? So your team is working in your own HMIS, and you're uploading data into the HDX 2.0, which is a website. It's a website we use for various data collection and data cleaning activities. So right now we have things like the LSA, Stella P, Stella M. Those are some things that are happening right now in the HDX. But of course, for this call, we want to focus just on the LSA portion of the HDX 2.0. Okay, so when you go to upload data into the HDX 2.0, you'll click on an Upload New button, and I'll go through this in the demo in a few minutes. But when you have a chance to upload a file, the first thing you want to make sure you do during this data collection period is make sure you select Official HUD Review File. Do not select local use zip file during this process. And you can see this little table that shows the difference between the two types of files. The upload period, we're really only uploading these official HUD review files during the data collection period, which is November 13th through January 17th. The scope is, LSA scope is slightly different. And again, during this 2-month period is when the review team app folks will provide support for you during this period. Your file will be automatically televised, and this data that you're submitting, your official file, that's what we use for consideration for inclusion in the AHAR. So we can put a big box around it, put a big red star. We really want you all to upload these official files because that's what we're using for this this process. Not only that, there's also this message in the bottom corner. When you upload a local use zip file, you're only really getting a subset of the data flags that are generated. You'll get all of the ones that apply to you when you use when you upload an official file. So make sure, again, official. Can't stress it enough. Official HUD review file when you upload something during this LSA data collection process. All right. So you want to upload a file, and when you do upload that official file, you may run into an upload error, and that happens. And these are some types of things that could lead to these upload errors. And when I say upload error, that means that there's something actually structurally wrong with the zip file that prevents the HDX from actually accepting it. So you'll get a sort of a rejection screen. Again, I'll show a little demo of that in a moment. But some kinds of things that lead to upload errors, some of those files may be uploaded with no data, or maybe they're misnamed, or there could be some incorrect formats. So maybe we're expecting a date field and it's coming in as a number field, something like that. Just something where our system can't read the data the way we're expecting it. So what you should do is, if an upload is rejected, and you'll actually get this upload error report that you can click on and view right on the screen. That'll hopefully help give you some information on what's causing that problem. So, and again, I'll show that in a demo. And also there are certain upload errors that vendors may be able to help you with. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so once you're able to successfully upload a file, which means there's no upload errors, then the resulting data set in the HDX will always be tagged with one of these following data set statuses, right? So the whole thing gets submitted. The first status is going to be need COC review. That tells everyone that the COC can start working on the data set. The errors and warnings are available for COC review, and notes can be left by the COC. At some point, after the COC has had a chance to try to limit their errors and they've left a significant number of notes for some of the warnings, then the COC can choose to submit the whole data set to their review team for review, right? So again, the whole point is for only one team, either the COC or the review team, to sort of have access and working on a data set at a time. And then, of course, the final best data set status is complete when the review team has determined no further actions can be taken to remove any remaining errors or to address any of the remaining warnings. The review team will go ahead and mark that data set status as complete. So for all of you folks who've worked on the LSA before, you'll probably know it's not necessarily a linear process. There's actually quite a bit of an iterative process involved. So even though there's only 3 statuses, it can kind of bounce around a bit. And so I'll kind of walk through that right now. So again, the first step is for a COC to upload their data. That's the sort of green box. And as soon as they upload their data, the data set will automatically be marked as needs COC review in the HDX. Then they'll take some time to review errors, leave notes for some warnings, and then when they're ready, they can submit that data again for the review team to take a look at. From that point, there are sort of 2 different ways we could go. One would be data set complete. Again, that's sort of most likely much down the line later in the process where the review team decides to mark it that the whole data set complete. Much more often, what's going to happen, especially over the next few weeks, we'll look at the data, leave some of our own notes, and then eventually when we're ready, we'll pass the whole data set back to the COC. And the way we pass it back to you all is by marking it back to need COC review. Right? That's our way of telling you that we've provided information for you, and there are some places where you could use some more information from the COC. And at that point, the COC has sort of 2 choices again. Either from that point, they can add some more notes and then resubmit the whole data set back to the review team, and then sort of start continue that iterative process. They can kind of go back and forth. Or another thing that's going to happen is the COC can do this really at any point in time. They can actually, the way they can address the data issues is by actually replacing their upload with a brand new upload that has cleaner data. In which case, hopefully with that new upload, there'll be fewer errors, fewer warnings. Of course, there could be new different errors and warnings that pop up, but hopefully, again, the point is at any point the COC can replace their data with newer, cleaner data and sort of start the merry-go-round again. So that's sort of the data cleaning process from start to finish, but there's definitely this iterative process where the data set's sort of getting passed back and forth, and each team is sort of leaving messages and questions and information for the other side. Okay, so I kept on mentioning things about leaving warning notes and so forth, but before we even talk about that, I should really mention for you what is a data flag to begin with, right? So upon successfully uploading an official HUD review file, the website will automatically perform all these calculations and identify possible data quality issues. And we refer to these data quality issues as flags. So this is just the HDX doing a bunch of math. That's going on in that image there. So that's what a data flag is. And there are there are two flag types. We have data errors and we have warnings. So a data error is something about the data that's not possible, where a warning is something about the data is unexpected, sort of unusual, but still possible. So a data error could be the number of adults served is higher than the total number of clients served by a shelter. So again, you can never have the subset be larger than the entire set. So that would be something that would be considered an error. That's not something that there's something wrong with the data in that sense. Versus, again, a warning could be something that's like the average household size is unusually high. I think our threshold is 4 for average household size. So again, if in one scenario there's an average household size over 4, it'll get automatically flagged. But that's definitely possible. You could definitely have cases where one community just has very large households that they're serving. Okay, so those are the 2 flag types. I'm just going to dig into even more examples. So within errors, some types of issues, some examples of errors are a project has client exit dates that are after the project ends, right? So if the project ends, you can't have clients being served. You could have cases where there are more recorded households than people or more units than beds. Again, you can't have that relationship there. The project might have active enrollments during a reporting period, but has no active bed inventory records. So there has to be some bed inventory for those clients to be staying. Also, again, there could be a zip code issue where there's a zip code of one of the projects is actually located outside of that COC. So again, we expect certain zip codes to appear based on which COC is submitting data. Resolution. So what to do if you're getting errors. If it's a structural or programming issue, it could be something that the vendor could help with to fix that issue. It could be a data entry issue. In that case, EVA might be something that you can that can be a helpful tool. Another note here in the bottom corner, you can see that there is a column in the HDX 2.0, and I'll show you that in a moment. That helps you identify whether or not a flag is more likely a COC or a vendor-related flag. All righty. Warning examples. So I just went through some error examples. How about some warning examples? Unusually high or low utilization rates. That comes up an awful lot. Population served by a project does not reflect the inventory reported, right? So you might have had they've reported only serving adults with children households, but all the beds are for adult only households. So something's going on there. Also, there could be discrepancies between LSA and HIC counts. So again, that could happen as well. What to do about these warnings? So if the warning reflects an actual data quality issue, then it's just like an error. You have to sort of address that in your HMIS and replace your upload with newer, cleaner data. If it's actually that it's an unusual case, but the data is actually accurate, then that's when the notes come into play. That's when the COC would enter a note in the HDX to explain the issue that's going on showing that the data is actually accurate. And these notes, there's an extra bullet here. The notes are critical for the review team to understand how to address issues while we do our analysis. Just a couple of examples. Warning flag statuses. Okay, so we talked about taking the whole data set and passing it back between the review team and the COC team. Now we're going to talk more at a micro level for individual data flags, what to do about leaving notes and setting statuses there. So flag statuses are only applicable for warnings, right? Because we talked before, errors are impossible and you have to clean up the data or clean something up and re-upload. That's how you address those. But warnings could be addressed with notes potentially. So what we do is for warnings only, there's a flag status, and actually there's that each flag takes on. And this one, there are sort of 7 unique flag statuses. These flag statuses make it clear if there's a next step and who's responsible for that next step. All right, so you'll upload your data, some warnings will pop up, and then for all those warnings that pop up for the first time, the default status will be that a note is required, right? Because there's no notes yet when you first upload your data. And so note required is the default status. As soon as you enter a note, as soon as the COC enters a note, the flag status automatically changes to COC added notes dash review team assessment needed. So that's all automatic. And again, it's the way, so we all know that, okay, it's time for the review team to take a look and provide some feedback. We might, at that point, a couple things could happen. We could decide to change it to more info needed from COC because we decide, you know, we could actually use more information to really understand the situation. We could also mark it as one of the three at the bottom. I'll skip over the data have changed for now, but the three at the bottom, we have the note sufficient LSA data accurately reflects community, right? So that's the case where the review team says, yep, that makes sense. We understand that you've looked into it and confirmed that the data is actually accurate and sort of explained why. So we can mark it that way. LSA data does not accurately reflect community. So if the COC leaves a note that says something like, oh, people are getting double counted, we're still looking into this, but we know that the data is incorrect. We could mark it this way, just so we know that it's incorrect for that moment. Again, hopefully that later down the line, you'd be able to upload data and maybe that warning would actually come off. And then the last one is all the way at the deadline. If we get to the point where that warning still exists, but there's no note that really allows us to understand whether or not there's a true data issue, we'll leave it as this issue unresolved by deadline because we really can't tell whether or not it's accurate or if it doesn't accurately reflect. And then the one I skipped over was the fourth one, the data have changed. So at any point, if you replace your data and something about one of these warnings, the warning still is there, but something's changed about it. So maybe originally there was an average household size of 4.5, but now after replacing the data, now the average household size is 6.5. It will automatically change the flag status to data have changed. That way the COC knows, oh, you know, something's changed about it. Maybe I need to double check with the project to figure out if this still accurately reflects what's going on, or if there's something else they need to look into. Okay, I just went through a lot of flag statuses, and now I feel like it's time to just open up the HDX and click around and show you some of the new features. And really, a lot of it are similar. A lot of this is similar to last year. We just tried to make some small tweaks to make it a little more user-friendly. So let me share my screen. Okay, so here's the HDX. I'm actually in the sandbox site, but it should be almost identical to the real site. But I'll start clicking around and showing you how this all works. So I've logged in as someone from a COC, so from the COC end. And when you first log in, here's our sort of home page with information about the different parts of the HDX. I'm going to go directly to the LSA section, so I'll click on that. Okay, so for this particular person, they would have, when they log, once they get to the LSA section, it takes them first to the View Official Submission Status page, and it shows a row for every COC that they have access to. So this particular COC has access, or this particular contact has access to 5 different COCs. Again, this is all fake data, so there's nothing real here. So again, the first thing they would do, if this is your first time, you click on Upload New to upload a new data set. This was in the earlier slide. Again, here's the information you have to select and fill in. And again, please do select that official HUD review file during this time frame. So you're going to select official HUD review, select the file, click Upload, and that's how you upload for the first time. Every time after that, after you've had a successful upload, every time after that, I strongly, strongly recommend you replace your upload. You don't delete and upload a new file. There's really no drawback to just replacing your file. All it's going to do is hopefully end up with cleaner data versus if you actually delete and then upload a new file, you would lose any notes that you had associated with the previous file. So please, again, first time, upload new. From that point on, replace, replace, replace. And I'll walk you through the replacing part. Okay, so this person has access to 5 COCs. If there is a link within the file name, that means they've started, that means you've started, and there's a file for you to click into. In this case, we'll say what happens if they have an upload error. I just found one where it's rejected. I'm going to click into it. And this is the screen that you'd see. It's the same screen you'd see immediately after uploading a new file and getting a rejection. And so this is this is the page you'd see, and here's that button you'd see, print error report. So what I did was I took a perfectly good zip file, went in, messed up one of the CSV files to change the reporting period, so it was no longer the correct reporting period. And so if you click on print error report, a PDF pops up. I guess this isn't a PDF yet. It's just a page pops up, and you can see a description of what is going on that's causing the HDX to reject the upload. And again, in this case, I purposely changed the reporting period to be something outside of what we need it to be. So it says right here, your report period parameters are incorrect in your LSA report.csv file. So again, hopefully this will be something that can help you and or your vendor get a better understanding of why the HDX was not accepting your upload. Okay, so that is an error report for a case where it was not a successful upload. Let's go to a case where you do have a successful upload. So here's another upload I have. I'm going to click into it. And here's the flag report page. This is the first page you see once you click onto a data set that was accepted. You'll see the data review status as a initial status is needs COC review. You can also open and close or sort of expand this to see some more information about the upload. So this is just sort of background information at the top. As I scroll down here, as I mentioned before, replace, replace, replace. So here's the replace upload button. So again, if once you have a successful upload moving forward, you want to replace that. And as soon as you replace your upload, it just changes the name. In addition to, of course, replacing the data, the name of the data set will also change on its own. So right now I named this one another RJ upload. It's automatically marked to version 1. If I replace my upload, it will go to the same thing, version 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. So the data set will change automatically as you replace your upload. Also, that means you probably want to name your data set something that makes sense moving forward. So that's why maybe naming your data set something like test might be sort of misleading if down the line you've replaced, and now it's like your final data. It might look a little odd for your data set name to be test, dash version 15 if it turns out to be your final data. So just keep that in mind as you name your data set, that it's kind of sticks with you for the entirety of the data collection process. Okay, replace, replace, replace. Okay, here are a couple. Actually, let me go backwards. Let me start with the actual table. So here's the table of all of the errors and warnings that were triggered upon upload. So there's a row for each flag, and you'll see that you can click into a flag and get a sort of a different view of the flag by clicking on the flag ID in the far left. So when you click into a flag on the far left, you'll see some of the same information you're seeing here, but just in a different view and actually a bit more information. So I'll click into this one particular one. So you have information about the flag, and then if you'd like to leave a note, you enter the note in here, and then click save, and it shoots up into the note history. One new thing this year you'll notice is there's an edit and delete button up here. So if it's your most recent note and you haven't yet passed the whole data set for review, you can edit or delete notes. So if I click update, So now, because often people make mistakes, they put a note in the wrong flag by accident, or put a typo or something, and you want to make a quick edit. Go ahead and do that. Or of course, you can even just delete the note. If again, only if it's something that if it's your most recent note. So. And actually, as I did that, I kind of went fast. I didn't even mention the fact that as I entered that in, the flag status changed automatically to the COC added notes. So maybe I'll even go to a different one. So let me go to a different one. So right, the original flag status is note required. Add a note here, click save, and this automatically changed to COC added notes, review team assessment needed. Okay, so I also, in this case, there's another case where, again, the COC added a note. Those will always be in a sort of tan color. And then any notes that the review team provides in response will always be in the sort of blue color. And so over time, you can sort of see the discussion thread. Please provide more info. Here is more info. So again, you can sort of see the thread go back and forth. And again, this person will have the ability to edit or delete because it's the most recent note. Okay, so again, this is just another view of the same thing of each of these individuals. This will have a color code. It's not working. We're in the process of fixing that. So these will all be color coded. And you'll notice there are no ways of adding notes for errors. And that's again purposeful, because the way to address an error is not to explain what's going on. It's to actually replace it with cleaner data. So that's why there's no notes for there's no way to leave notes for us for errors. A couple other things there. There's a sort of progress bar up here. Number of data errors remaining. So this one had 6 errors right off the bat and 32 warnings, 3 of which have notes that have at least one COC note. So you can see here, there's a column that shows the latest COC note, and in this case, 3 of them have notes associated. So that's why the numerator is 3. And as you add more notes, you can see that progress bar grow and grow. And also the whole thing could change if you replace it with a brand new upload. I'm sorry, if you replace it with a new upload, all these numbers could change, right? Because some of the notes you might have provided could be for a warning that no longer is in your data anymore, right? 1101 might no longer be an issue anymore when you replace your upload. So that would go away, which would change both your numerator and the denominator. Other things to note here, in the past, we've always had this flag export button, which more or less exports this table below in a CSV file type. Now you can export it as XLSX files as well. But the other nice new feature we have is a notes export. So if you click on this, it's nice because you'll be able to see, again, a CSV or an Excel file which shows all of the notes across all of your flags. So that's a nice way to sort of back up your work and also to look at your notes in a different way, because in the past what we've had is just this flags export where you could only see basically this table, which only has the latest COC note and the latest review team note. So again, if there was any information from a couple of threads, a couple of steps before, there wasn't an easy way of getting that into a Word document or into an Excel file without a lot of manual work. So again, it's always a good idea to, because we have this option to back up your work just as you're adding notes or after you've added a bunch of notes. Never a bad idea to just export the notes file.
RJ, just real quick.
Sure.
For the notes exporting, that's just the most recent note, right? Or
no, it's actually all. It's the
amazing.
Yeah, it's folks have been already excited to hear about that at my regional call. If any of you folks are in Region 2, shout out to Region 2. That's the region I'm working with, and yeah, they were excited to hear about that. So again, it's something that's new this year, and actually, I mean, it's up to you, Kiera. Would you want me to stick around here and see if folks want me to click around some more, or do you want to kind of move on to a couple other slides?
Yeah, we're not getting anything to click around in yet, and I am keeping an eye on time. I think we maybe need to move on. There are
Okay.
a couple things. Yeah, so I think what I will say blanketly is I am going to try and finish up my slides and answer some questions verbally in the next 10 minutes. If I don't get through everything, I will continue to answer questions in the chat after as this call finishes up. But if we don't get to your question, please do just email your regional inbox. If whatever region your COC is in, if you're in region 4, if you're in region 2, then that is the regional inbox that you would use. And we can put in the chat what the kind of, what those emails are. Give me 1 second. So I'm going to run through my slides. I'll try and talk, and then if I have time, I'll talk about some of the questions we got and just reiterate those verbally. So the timeline, we have launched. This is the timeline. It's in the LSA submission guide. You can always see this exact graphic in there and more explicit explanations of everything there. All of the blue part is just indicating that this is that data cleaning review period that I was talking about before. We started on Monday, we will end on the 17th of January. Those are hard deadlines. That's when the data cleaning period ends, and then the usability determinations and analysis and all the other things that we do in order to get the data into the AHAR reports, the LSA reports, happens after the 17th. We have some interim benchmarks that people have been asking a lot about. And I just want to, we know that there are vendor issues for some folks. We know that there are COC specific situations that come up every year that might mean that you won't hit these interim benchmarks. To the extent that that is the case, nothing happens to you if you don't meet these interim benchmarks. These are solely so that people don't put off doing things until the end, especially for people that are new on LSA this year. You don't want to put off trying to upload once you get to the end of the data cleaning period, close to that 117 date, because you will not have time unless you've been doing a great job throughout the rest of the year on your data quality, which with all the tools and work that everyone is doing is totally possible, but historically has not been the majority of folks. So the first interim benchmark on 11/29 is to just get a successful upload. So we know that in order to have a successful upload, you need a report from your vendor that works. So for those of you that are maybe waiting on your vendor, you can let your review team know. Definitely do let your review team know so that they know you're aware of what's going on, you know what you need to do, and you know what you're waiting on. For those of you that have a report, an LSA export, and are uploading and getting those upload errors that RJ talked about, you'll want to work through all of those, doing what RJ said, clicking on the report to figure out what the upload errors are. I don't know if RJ mentioned this. I was kind of trying to keep one ear on what RJ was saying and one half of my brain on answering the chat questions. It's possible to have an upload error that you resolve and then go back and get a new upload error. So if you're getting upload error after upload error, that, look at what it is. It might take multiple rounds of sorting out things either on your end or with your vendor. So we just want that process to happen before the 29th. So that once you have the successful upload, as RJ said, a successful official upload, cannot stress enough. People are asking about this in the chat. If you upload a local use file, you will not get all of the errors and warnings. You will not have all of the structural upload errors run on that data, just because that wouldn't make sense for people using local use files to upload for Stella, et cetera. So there are some data quality checks, but there are not all of them necessary for the LSA, and there's all of the warning notes back and forth and stuff like that are not set up for the local use file. So You're going to want to upload an official file as soon as you can, work through all those issues, get a successful official upload by the 29th, because that's when you'll be able to see all the errors and warnings and work through the process that RJ just explained. The next interim deadline is related to those warnings. So we recommend that once you have a successful upload, you can see all your errors and warnings, you start working on the errors first. It's a bit of a unique, it can be a unique situation for each COC on whether it makes sense to start adding warning notes. If there's definitely some things that you know are not data quality issues on your warnings, you can add those notes. But like RJ said, if any data related to those changes as you work on your errors or other warnings that are data quality issues, they'll change and it'll require you to go back to the note and us to go back to the note, and that just takes more time. It's definitely something that we are happy to do. We're just letting you know that sometimes that will require additional work if you start on your warnings first and then go to your errors. So if you start working on all of your major errors first and then start looking at your warnings and adding notes, we're saying that you should start looking at your warning notes around the 15th. That might be really early for some folks, especially if you're focusing on your errors, and that's totally fine. We just use the 15th because, as you might note, that the gray periods for both Thanksgiving week and the week between Christmas and New Year's are grayed out. Our staff are not, I will say, our staff are not required to work. We're using it as a kind of blackout period for responding to emails and reviewing notes. Some staff might be working and you might get responses or you might get reviews back. HDX 2.0, nothing will happen with that. You will still be able to upload as many times as you want during those gray periods, add warning notes. It's just the things that our staff will be doing. So the reason we chose that 15th date is so that if you submit any warnings by the 15th, we are guaranteeing that someone on our staff will respond to you by the 22nd, so that you can have those kind of responses before we take that week-long break. So again, if you don't have any warning notes before the 22nd and you need to spend January working on that, that's totally fine. Another note, though, is that the more people that wait till January to add notes and the more notes there are, does mean that it takes our staff longer to review them and get them back to you. So right now, our goal is to have emails responded to within 1 business day and reviews done within 2 business days. Depending on the complexity of your emails or the complexity of the situations you're adding in your warning notes, that might not always be possible, but that is our goal. It is probably, I can anticipate maybe that week of the 18th of December being very difficult for us to keep to that 2-day period. That's why we're giving ourselves that, like, if you get it in by the 15th, we'll definitely get back to you and we'll try and get back to you. We'll prioritize things throughout the week to get as many back as we can. But if you submit something at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Friday the 22nd, you are likely not hear back until after, until January. The other thing, that same thing happens the last week of the period. So if you have not put any warning notes in and you wait until the 16th or even the 11th of January, and we're only able to get you responses back by, if you get them on the 11th, we'll get you a response before, the end of the data cleaning period, but it might not give you enough time if we need more information to get that information. So just, I will say that's kind of the reasoning behind the benchmarks and the timelines so that you can think about it and plan your plans and strategy. If you have any specific questions about the flags you're getting and your specific COC needs, always reach out to the your review team via your regional inbox. They will either be able to answer your questions or escalate up your questions through our expert kind of team to get you the answers that you need. A couple of things I'll note about that. If you have, that I've also seen in the chat, if you have questions about you think of an error or a warning flag is not calculating correctly, reach out to your review team. They will escalate that, and they'll just be the point of contact, making sure that the question gets answered and the answer gets back to you, even if other people are working on that. RJ, did you mention Weebly? Did you show that? Sorry, I wasn't able to hear.
I did not, but you can just mention that when they on the home page, there's a green banner, and the link to the Weebly is right there on that green banner on the home page of LSA.
Yeah, so if you go to the homepage of the LSA, the green banner at the top, it's up there now as of yesterday. So if you were in there on Monday or earlier yesterday, you might not have seen it, but it's there now. For those of you returning, it's the same process as last year. We will be posting all issues, like flag calculation issues, on that Weebly page, and that will be the most up-to-date information. So when you tell your review team that you think something's wrong, we look into it. And if we determine, yes, something's wrong, we fix it. And then we keep all of that information on the Weebly. The Weebly will also have what to do with the issue. And most things that go on Weebly, once we fix, will require a new upload. So for any of you getting, so you should all go there today, and you can see if any of your errors or warnings are on that list, and kind of know to yourself that they will be fixed. I've been told hopefully today or tomorrow, so it won't be too long. But you'll want to re-upload after that, and then hopefully you should get some errors dropping off of your list. If there's a warning or error that you think is calculating incorrectly and is not on the Weebly list, you should definitely reach out so that we can start looking into it as soon as possible. But yeah, if you let your review team know, they will also try and make sure you are notified when it's fixed, so that you know when to re-upload and look at that. That's a big thing. Okay, I'm going to try and get through the last of it, what I have to say in the next 2 minutes. I'm going to say a brief thing about usability. We got this in the chat. Usability for last year is out of the scope of your current review team. There's the COC/NOFO email that we can put in the chat that you should reach out with any questions specific to what your usability determination was last year. Someone also asked why, what it means. I'm forgetting now the exact words that were used. Usability for the LSA, for the AHAR team, is us thinking about whether we can be certain enough of the data quality to use it in national estimates for the AHAR report. So it's a really high standard, and it basically, you know, as we talked about, if there are errors in your data, so basically it's a higher standard than maybe is necessary. It also is if you have left a bunch of warnings that you haven't responded to, or you haven't responded with enough information for us to understand what's going on with your data. Sometimes it might not be an actual issue with your data, but we don't know. So we can't, you know, depending on the situation, we might not be able to rely on that for the national estimates. So it's very much a very specific terminology for usability. And because last year is done, you can email the COC/NOFO email for specific details about last year's usability and your flags. For any flags going forward this year, I mean, your data will be usable if you have no errors and you've either resolved all the data quality issues with your warnings and or provided a note. So that should be the goal. You can work with your review team on how to prioritize that and talk through if you know you aren't going to be able to resolve all of your flags. That's where we really it gets down to, is this going to be an issue for whether it can be used for national estimates, not whether it's good or useful in other ways. So happy to answer more questions about that in the chat, but wait until you have an actual upload and then work with your review team on whatever warrant flags you're getting this year, and they can help you kind of prioritize and think through what's going to be a concern this year. Okay. I'm so sorry, Alyssa, but I'm going to take one more minute. I have 2 slides. Week 1 goals, the most important thing, respond to your review team via your inbox. We calculate that. We see who's engaged. We will follow up with you if we haven't heard from you or you haven't uploaded anything. So even if you're waiting on a vendor or you're waiting on something else, just let us know you're there and we have the right contact information. speaking of contact information, update your contact information in HDX 2.0. You need a primary and you need a submitter. And yeah, if you have any questions about that, email your review team, or if you don't even know what to do, you can email the AAQ desk and we'll get you connected. And then I'm actually going to skip this because this is just basically what RJ said. The last slide was week 1. What should you do this week? This slide is what should you do after you get that successful upload? And it's just that back and forth that RJ was talking about working on your errors and warnings. Vendor flags, RJ noted this. Vendor flags should be sent to your vendor. You can use the flags export link and let them know what they need to be working on. The COC flags are things we think that you can do, but it might not be the case. You might need your vendor to help you with some of those flags as well. But we also have a team working with vendors, but it's important for you to send your specific flags to your vendor and work with them individually as well. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna start. Oh, and then just a reminder, you will need to re-upload your LSA export many, many times and possibly talk through warnings many, many times. This is an iterative process. We are here, and hopefully this will be our best LSA yet.
Thank you so much,
Now I'm
Kara.
officially done, Alyssa. Go for it.
It's a lot of very valuable information. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we have about 17 minutes left of the call today, and we would like to really get some feedback from you all about this idea of an active list. So I'm actually going to share my specific screen because we're going to use something called Slido that it is integrated directly into the slides. And I'm just going to put this disclaimer out here that this is not the first time I've used this, but this is the first time that I've used this with this many folks on the call. So if this goes very far south, you can totally blame me. And you can also put your feedback in the chat because we absolutely want your feedback on this. So I'm going to kick it over to Glenn while I get my screen ready and we can start. Glenn? And I can't hear you.
Yeah, we're not able to hear you.
Nope.
We did do a mic test.
There you
Yes,
go.
we did, and now we can hear you. Yes.
Thanks, y'all. I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. My first month as an HMIS admin, I actually got an email from a reporter or something asking how many folks were experiencing homelessness in my community. And I was like, this is great. I'm an HMIS now. I can totally answer this. And we couldn't. There was no report for that. And I was totally shocked. And I'm just really glad that this is happening. So this is years and years ago. So at this point, a lot of communities have some version of an active list. And also we know that this is something a lot of communities are still struggling with. You might call it a by name list, you might call it an active list, you might call it something totally different, but no matter what you call it, it takes a lot of resources to build a really good one. And shocking no one on this call, a lot of us are really short on resources. So how does looking at the possibility of developing active list standards to provide to you, as communities, and also to vendors? And it's important that we're doing this. It's important that we're doing it right. And we know these lists are often really specific to local contexts. So today we are asking y'all to tell us more about what those lists look like in your communities, or if you don't have one, what you wish it looked like, so that we can incorporate that feedback as these conversations are continuing. So we've got 3 questions for you. You're going to see that QR code. We're going to advance the slide now. There also should be a link in the chat. Tell us whatever you think we need to know, and you'll see it pop up right here. If you are having trouble submitting, again, you can drop it in the chat and we'll pull it in there later. So we're just going to start really, really big picture. How would you define active in relation to this list? So what kinds of situations should cause folks to appear on this list? And again, maybe this is what you have right now. Maybe it's what you wish you had. We want to hear all of it. And let everyone type. This is so exciting. I didn't know we'd be able to see how many people were typing at any one time. What a good day. See somebody in there talking about active case management. I'd love to hear more about what that looks like in your community. See, at risk of homelessness is showing up on here. Clients in the system. If we could hear more about that, is that everybody who's in any HMIS program, anybody who has ever been in your HMIS? I'd love to know more about what that means. Night by night and street outreach are murkier. Yes. How would you clear that up if you could? Hope for filters for all of these things. That's a great idea. I'm seeing a lot of folks talking about service access. So I'm thinking that means a service entered in the system. Is that any kind of service for anybody who said that? Or is it just a service of some kind? We have a question in the chat, Alyssa. I don't know how Slido works. Folks are wondering if they'll be able to see these answers later. I don't know if we know that.
So I'm so excited that this did not fail. So there's that piece. I'm just going to say that out loud. This is so great to see these come through. And we will be able to download these results. I'm not sure what format they will come in. It could be an Excel doc. It could be a Word doc. Either way, it won't be in the slides like this because there's no way to scroll up and down the slides. But we will absolutely provide this feedback in some way, and we will be digging into it. So this is amazing, and thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, things are slowing down. We're going to give it about 30 more seconds on this slide, and then we'll go ahead and go on to the next question. This is incredibly helpful. Thank you all so much. All right, Alyssa, let's see the next question. And if anybody was still trying to share something on this, I don't know if Slido will let you answer when we've gone on to another slide, so feel free to drop it in the chat if we missed something. What have you tried, again, whatever you call it, whether it's an active list, a by name list, what have you tried with that list that has worked well? The next question will be about things that have not worked so well. We'll have time for that. But right now, what has been successful in your community? This might be things about how the reporting logic is built. It might be conversations that you've had with folks in the community that went into building it. This is really any part of that list development is what we're looking for here. Whoever's talking about the CE status field, if you could share what statuses those are, what stages you're looking at, I guess partly also whether that is based on standard data elements or custom data elements is helpful for us to know also. See someone in the chat mentioning the COC is rebuilding itself and also rebuilding the by name list. The next slide, when we're talking about what didn't work so well, I'd love to know why you'd ended up needing to rebuild it. Local fields for documentation tracking, that's fantastic. Someone's talking about different logic layers and algorithms. Love this, love everything about it. If there's any part of those logic layers and algorithms you could share with us, please do. Oh, thank you for following back up. This is the CE status bit. Thank you. Modifying and using what you've already got from your vendor. This is great. I did not know that you could put emojis in here. This is fantastic. All right, things are slowing down again. We're going to give it another 30 seconds and then we'll move on to the next slide. Again, if you think you're not going to be able to get in the answer, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Oh, that is fascinating. Just using a data warehouse to create a list based on 3 different sources. All right, let's go on to the next question. That is such a, Jessica, I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. So what have you tried with your active list that has not worked so well? And again, this might be logic that you tried that didn't work out, might be how the community interacts with it. Again, this is a really wide net. So before I was a TA provider, there's a question in the chat. I had built a little app that makes a by name list from the HMIS CSVs. It is not an official HUD product. It is just a thing that I did for fun. I will update it unofficially if and when I have time. And I am glad that you're interested. I just remembered that only the panelists can see those questions, so I apologize for not reading the question to you all. See privacy and security with non-HMIS users. So when you're involving non-HMIS users, I'm thinking that means like it's being emailed or printed, or how are they accessing that? Seems to be coming up a lot. Seen things about manual input. So I'm thinking some of these that we're talking about are reports that come out of HMIS, maybe into Excel, and things are being entered in at that point. That is, I'm misreading that. Go ahead and let us know. Distinguishing between an active list and prioritization, so important. Thank you for raising that. Data quality coming up and overlapping enrollments. Yep. Somebody talking about tracking through a linear flow. At some point, someone who had a background in systems engineering wanted to work with my team on building a flow through the system. And I think we probably had 10 meetings before I finally got them to understand, like, people might loop through, you might go back, like there is no linear path. It's so complicated to write for. It's a great flag. Sharing case notes. Yep. Relying on one rock star person. Yep.
Just a heads up, we are at about the 2-minute mark.
We are slowing down. So you 30 more seconds on this slide and we'll hand it back over.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Again, if you're in the middle of something and you don't get to drop it in here, please do share it in the chat. Feel free to submit an AAQ if anything comes to you later on that you wish you'd shared today. We so appreciate all of this. We are going to read all of these responses, and this has been incredibly valuable. Handing it back over.
Perfect. Thanks so much. That was pretty smooth. It looked nothing like that mural board of 2022, was it? I think so, yeah. I remember it well, though time is just a construct. Okay. Thank you all to everybody who, Walter, it changed me as well. Walter just mentioned that it changed them, that whole experience. Okay, hey, let's wrap up this call. This was a big one. We went through a lot of stuff today. Special shout out to everybody who presented on today. It was a lot of content. We provide this slide every time we meet with you. It's just some foundational information that we feel like every HMIS admin should be familiar with. So if you're not, please go ahead and check these out. Sam is dropping the links in the chat for you. And then we also like to highlight what some of the newer resources are that have been published. So as we mentioned earlier today, the 2024 HIC and PIT data collection notice was published just the other day here. And then lastly, I know that this was so much fun, so we should definitely do this again. We are coming back here December 20th. And it occurs to me that for the second time in a row, Alyssa, I don't have a joke. I've been like nose to the grindstone. Nothing. Gwen, do you have a joke?
I have added this very embarrassing book of dad jokes work library.
Yes.
For this very moment.
Good. Thank you. Teamwork makes the dream work, Gwen. Yes.
So Jesse, how does a barber cut the man in the moon's hair?
I don't know. Tell me.
Eclipse it.
Oh, yes. You nailed that, Gwen.
Thank you.
Well played. All right. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us on the call. I believe we got through almost all of the questions. So if you didn't get an answer, you can go ahead and hang out for a couple of minutes and we'll see if we can get you one. But otherwise, we will see you back here December 20th. Thanks, everybody.